It's off exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
Yeah, my husband's more excited every time he gets another boy. He's like, great, another one. Like, okay. He just doesn't want a small version of me, I think. This is the secret.
That's fair. You know, that could be it.
Yep.
Yeah, like we have one kid, not 5 yet, but we have a daughter. She's just turned 20 months yesterday.
Aw.
Yeah, I think I wanted a girl. I was like happy with whatever. We had a hard time having her. We did a IVF to have her. So
Yep.
by the end, just like, man, I'll take any healthy kid. It'll be great.
Totally.
But
Exactly.
Yeah, deep down, we work with so many high school athletes in here. And I'm like, gosh, a group of boys for me is like the middle school group of boys is like the hardest for me to train.
Middle school, anything is really hard. It's a
Yeah.
weird time of life for kids.
It is weird. Girls are like real mean to each other.
So mean.
Girls
They're
are
so
mean to each other. They're easier to train in here because they'll like listen to us better. Boys just want to touch each other. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, why? What are we doing? Like, I remember when we had a group, like a team of boys that were like, I think 7th graders. And like one day I'm just like, how can I say this without coming off wrong? I'm like, you guys remember like COVID and like 6 feet of space?
Right.
And like,
Let's
remember
do
all
that.
that? I'm like,
Can we keep that right
can we
now?
have some personal space here?
That's actually what I started training. Who I started training was that middle school, high school population.
Like that was the first kind of group when you started training, the first
Yeah,
population?
like even before I got certified, I was like interning with a gym in Manans that trained mostly athletes. And so I was training like middle school, high school boys mostly.
Are you from around here originally?
Yeah, I'm from Brunswick.
Okay.
I went to Holy Names.
And then you ran track, right? That was your thing?
I did, yeah. Yeah, that was my thing. I loved the 100, 200, and reluctantly got pushed into the 400 a few times. But yeah, I was mostly sprinter.
Yeah,
So-
I wouldn't want to do anything further than even 100.
I couldn't play pickleball the other month because I tore my hamstring doing that, so I'm not ready to sprint.
Well, there's a lot of changes in direction, so that's like fair enough.
Yeah, we can say that's what got me.
He started doing a lot more plyometric stuff after that, in the gym.
Gotta
Yeah,
get
you
ready
learn
for
your
next
lesson.
summer. Yeah, because I was just like, I just want to train to like be a dad now. Like, I just want to, run around in the yard and like
Right.
feel okay with how I look.
Yep.
And I was like, I can still do the athletic things. And it was like 10 minutes into pickleball. I had to go sit out. I was like, I should probably do a little bit more.
Yeah. My brother tore his hamstring, or no, his Achilles. He popped his Achilles playing basketball. He's just going out for a layup. I'm like,
I mean,
sad.
I did that too.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
You did that with flag football.
Yep. And then I still play because I have a sick addiction.
Yeah, that's just a long recovery.
Yeah, that's it.
How-
Now I feel better, so we're good.
How'd you then get into like strength and conditioning and personal training? Did track kind of push you that direction?
It did, yeah. So when I was in college, and I was lucky enough to be with a Division I program at Providence, and so our strength and conditioning component of our training was just like, it was just really top tier. And the strength and conditioning coach, Coach Kenneth White, he was just a phenomenal strength training coach, and I had never really lifted before. And when I experienced how it felt to be strong, I was like, I love this, and I love this more than running. And so I kind of got into the realm of personal training at the later years of college, and really just like loved helping people to feel strong. So that was kind of how I got into it.
Did you start to go to track practice and just wish like, oh, I rather would be lifting right now? Or
100%. I loved lifting. I loved like, learning how to do chin-ups and, like med ball cleans, and just feeling powerful was just very appealing to me. So, the 7 a.m. like repeat 400 started to get kind of old, truthfully. So I started to like scheme like, how can I keep lifting but still be on a team but like not run track.
Yeah, that's how I was with baseball. I was like obsessed with baseball my whole life.
Yeah.
And like, put all my time into trying to get better at baseball. I went to college, went to Springfield College, so D3,
Yep.
but played my first 2 years. Went to fall ball my junior year and was just like, I'm not enjoying it. Like, I'd rather be in the gym lifting or like reading strength and conditioning things.
Yep.
And then, I just kind of grinded out the fall ball. And I think like the next day after fall ball ended, I went to my coach and I was like, hey man, it's just, I'm not loving it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that. Like it was like the end of my sophomore year. I was like, I'm good with this. I think I want to do something else. But I said I was going to take some time off from team sports for the first time in like, probably 10 years. And then I joined rugby like 2 weeks later.
Yo.
So
That's a quite a change from track to rugby.
it was actually less of a change than you would think.
Yeah.
Because I played on the wing, and you
Okay.
basically just catch the ball and run
But
as
you
hard
get-
as you can.
But you get hit,
Sometimes if they can catch you,
right?
they couldn't catch me.
I don't know if you know this, but she was a sprinter.
Yes.
So it was like they reassured me. My friends who played at the time reassured me that I really wasn't going to get hit if I didn't get caught, and that rang true for probably about a year. And then I got hit, and I was like, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different.
That
but
feels different when that happens.
yeah, no padding and gets the wind knocked out of you, and yep.
You played rugby the rest of your college career?
Yeah, so I played for junior and senior year, and then I actually played in grad school too. I went to grad school in Scotland, and I played for the University of Glasgow.
Oh, that's sick.
I played for them for a while, and I played for regional teams, and was asked to actually try out for the national sevens team in the UK. But I had like one more year of residency before I would qualify, and in that time, I got pregnant with my first, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
So
I fulfilled my rugby dream.
yeah.
What's residency mean? You had one more year of...
So you have to be a resident in the country for like 3 years to play for their national team. So I had been there for like 2 years, and I had another year before I could officially try out for their team. So it was kind of a bummer. My husband was kind of mad at me. He was like, "What? You're going to give this up? It's like this is such an opportunity." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but kids."
Yeah.
So I wanted to be in one piece for my newborn.
Yeah, that
of
makes
course.
sense.
Yeah.
What's sevens? That's smaller, right? Less people on the field, faster?
Yeah, so a normal rugby team is 15 players, and so sevens is like just a faster version of it. That's what they played in the Olympics this year.
Okay.
So,
What brought you over there to Scotland?
my husband. So we met in Providence in my junior year. He was over in Providence playing for the city's rugby team. And he actually ended up filling in coaching for the Providence College women's team, and I was on the team, and that's how we met. So we had a long distance relationship for about a year and a half, and then we got engaged, and then I moved over there on a fiancé visa. We both started grad school 2 weeks later after we got married, and then the rest is history.
That's just history.
Yeah, we were there for 3 years, so.
And now there's a starting 5.
Yes, and now there's 5 boys.
What made you want to come back here? Family?
Yeah, so I'm from here, and I really missed my family, and I have 2 brothers, and they have kids, and so I wanted to be back here.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like we weren't abroad, but we lived in Boston for a long time, my wife and I, and just loved it. Like a lot going on. You have a whole city you can just kind of walk out to. We lived there, our whole 20s. But it's like to open a business there and to pay rent on a building and then to do childcare and then it's just like, you can't live the life that at least we wanted to live in a big city like that.
And you'd be successful anywhere if you've got the right tools and you work hard enough. To be successful in Boston, essentially you'd have like the same amount of spending money that you'd have here.
Yeah, because you're making more money, you're charging more money, of course.
Exactly.
But you're dealing with, at least, I'm sure in everything, but the fitness realm, I felt like, because I considered it, but I was like, sorry for that fly.
That's right.
I'm like, this market is just so saturated, though.
Hugely.
Huge. Any big city or a big suburb of a big city. But around here is like a weird area where my wife's from here as well, and we knew that this was a goal of mine to open a facility here. I worked in a couple of facilities and interned at a couple in Boston with a similar business model, a semi-private model. And I would keep looking back and be like, is there anything? And kind of research, be like, there's not. And looking back and be like, there's not.
Right.
And then finally, my wife got a job back here. She said, hey, we're moving back. Like, you're going to do this. I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, let's do it. That's literally how this gym started.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, not ready, I guess, but like, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And then did it. But and even now, I feel like, obviously COVID got rid of some places, and now I feel like we're starting to see a little resurgence of people who have just probably accumulated some capital and gotten money post-COVID and are kind of opening now. But still, it's a weird market here where people, right, we're in the suburbs, you have Saratoga, you have Latham where you are.
Yep.
It's like people have money in these suburbs, but the kind of gym space isn't crazy saturated. Do you agree?
I think it depends on what niche you're in.
I guess let's talk about that, right? Let's put aside the kind of boot camp style places.
Yeah.
Right? I guess we'll take those out of the picture and we can just say like quality either one-on-one personal training or quality small group, not super saturated.
No, I've actually been thinking about this a lot, especially in the Latham area where we are. There's only a couple places, and most of them are very small, and their capacity is just really not that high. So, like, as far as real places with a lot of square footage that do small group and one-on-one, there really isn't a lot in Latham. And the thing about people in Latham is they want to stay in Latham. If they live in Latham, they work in Latham, they don't want to leave Latham.
And we see this as well with Clifton Park. Like, I thought we'd open here, and okay, I have a draw. I'm right in the middle.
Yep.
I have a draw from Clifton Park. I have a draw from Latham below, and I have a draw from Saratoga above. But it's really been I have a draw from Clifton Park.
And yeah, you get the few and far between that'll make the trip.
Yeah,
Clifton
exactly.
Park.
Yeah, Clifton Park is one of those interesting places. Like, I've had a lot of people ask me, like, oh, would you open a location in Clifton Park? And I'm like, no.
Would you ever do another location?
Yeah, we actually have been looking kind of passively, like mostly because I just had another baby. But we were looking more actively last year in Saratoga. But I literally, the per square foot price of the real estate up there is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so inflated. I was like blown away by the prices they were giving me. I'm like, 35 a square foot? Are you out of your mind?
That's outrageous. Yeah, I mean, that's why we're light industrial back here, because we can get it's knocked down a little bit from what a retail a price per dollar per square foot would be. But yeah, it's like, okay, I do this, and now, like, what do I have to do to start to make money for myself? I got to do my insurance, and I gotta pay taxes, and I gotta pay employees. It's
I mean, if your rent is astronomical, it's just so limiting. It really is, and it's funny because there are some Saratoga like industrial areas, but they're kind of sketchy because there's like no one back there.
Yeah.
And so a couple places I've sort of looked at and like sent to. So one of my my GM, she is from like in Queensbury. She's up there in like Wilton area. And I send her places every once in a while, and she's like, nope. And I'm like, okay.
Just because it's sketchy.
Yeah, it's like not a nice area, or she's like, yeah, that's kind of off the beaten path. Or so there's always been a reason why the spaces that we've looked at just haven't worked out. So I'm just waiting. I'm not one to like force something to happen. I think that if it's meant to happen, it will happen. So we're definitely looking.
It's like one of those things you'll see it and you'll be like, yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Exactly. Yep.
That's what this was here. And like, I was just thinking about what I wanted the space to be from a how we were going to run our training programs. So like a lot of open space. You can see everybody from everywhere in the gym. I wanted high ceilings to make the place seem bigger, and garage doors, and a lot of parking. Those are the variables I was thinking. Obviously, a rent that I knew was affordable, a lease that wasn't outrageous. But I didn't even realize for us the proximity of being off the highway and how easy that is for people.
Yeah.
When people ask us about like how to get there, I'm like, oh, dude, super easy. Off exit 10, take a left and another left, and you're pretty much there.
Yep. Yeah, actually, it took me a shorter time to get here than I thought it would. It was like 23 minutes from like Loudonville.
Yeah. Because I'm in East Greenbush, and it takes me like 25, maybe 30 with traffic for me to get here. So it's not bad at all.
Yeah.
What's the square footage that you have now?
So we have 4,000 square feet, which is really nice. We had 2,000 before. So the space we're in now, we've been there for just over a year.
Cool.
About a year and a half now, actually. But now we have shower facilities and a sauna and offices. And we have a physical therapist who operates her business from our space as well.
That's sweet.
And we have a front desk area, which we really didn't have like officially before. So where we are it's been great for us.
How did you start to learn? Because this field is so self-led. There's no okay, I have this degree and I entered the workforce and I've climbed this ladder.
Yep.
It's like, there's no kind of guide which is what makes this field. You just have so many places that aren't great, and it's harder to do a great job because there's no like clear path. How'd you even start to discover, okay, this is the business model I want to run.
Yeah.
And this is I guess just start with that. Like, this is how I want to run my model.
Yeah. So when I lived in Scotland, when we were in grad school, we lived in Glasgow, and it's like a pretty decent sized city. And we went to a CrossFit gym there. That's where my husband and I worked out. And, at that time I was like, they ran the gym really well. It was a solid place. They had good programming. And we were really happy there. And I got pregnant with my first, and I was like, now what? Can I still deadlift 200 pounds? Can I still be squatting heavy? Can I be like holding my breath, Valsalva, like when I have no idea. And this was in 2012. So there was just not that much information, truthfully. It was all just like, oh, well, you're going to hurt your baby if you do this. Or like, oh, you can only do yoga. And I was like, there's nothing for women who want to be strong.
Yeah, I feel like my go-to resource is always like Molly Galbraith. You know who she is?
Yeah,
Like the Girls Gone Strong.
Yeah, Girls Gone Strong.
That's always been like my lookup when I have questions like that.
Yeah, they're a great resource. And there's thankfully a lot more now than there was. But it's funny because I went to my first pre-postnatal exercise prescription, like continuing education course. And the woman who was teaching it she was great, but she didn't have kids. She had no idea. And I happened to be like a few months postpartum at the time. And she would like ask me, she'd be like, is that right? Or like, what do you think about that? Because I was the only one in the room who had kids. And I was like, I don't know. Are you supposed to be teaching me like how to do this? So it was very much like, it was all, I think, a lot of guesswork and assumptions, and not a lot of it was like science-based. And so I was very aware of like a gap in the market, just even in the UK, and they're even a little bit further ahead of us with that kind of research. And then when we moved back here, I was working at Fitness Artist in Latham. At that time they had their Latham location, and I was doing a lot of one-on-one and a lot of it ended up kind of going into a small group, and I worked with a lot of moms, and there just was nothing else. And there were so many women who wanted to continue to be active when they were pregnant and postpartum, and there just wasn't anywhere else that had that option. Like most gyms were like, oh, I don't know, don't lay on your back. It's like, okay, well, that's not helpful information. And so I was just aware that gap was there. And so I worked there for a couple of years. And then in late 2017, I was like, I feel like this could probably be a business in and of itself. And so I considered opening a gym like specific to moms. And I ended up actually opening like a gym for all women, because I felt like, okay, it can't just be limited to moms, because there are plenty of women who go through the same issues, who don't have kids or may have kids later on. And so that was kind of what led me to open my own space. I had a couple of clients who I'd worked with for a long time who were also business owners, and they were like, you could do this like by yourself. And I was like, okay, here we go.
Sometimes you just need that little kick in the ass.
Yeah, you definitely
you
do.
need people to gas you up. That was my wife for me. That was this guy, Mike Reinold, who's a mentor to me that I knew in Boston.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, you got this. Like, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you really, and then, it was like very reassuring, because when I opened, I knew that I had like a guaranteed about 40 women who would be coming in. Yeah. And so that in and of itself was very helpful for my business plan. Because of course, when you're signing a lease, they want to know, like, if this is a new business, it's probably going to go under in less than 2 years, right? Statistically. So what can you say that's going to tell us that you're not going to go under?
You can say, I know I'm going to have X amount of revenue each month coming in.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I know I have 40 people. They pay this much per month. So that's going to help me cover the rent and then some. I didn't have any employees when I first opened. It was just me. And so thankfully, I had some people in my corner that vouched for me, and I was able to, get the lease and open the space. And
yeah. This is such we say all the time here, this is such a male-dominated field, a young male-dominated field.
Yeah.
Right? You got neat heads, you have egos.
Oh, huge egos.
Huge egos, right?
No offense, but whoa.
No, yeah.
We know.
It's scary.
I've done some work on myself.
Haven't we all?
Haven't we all? Jesus, that's the truth. Yeah, but as a female coming in this industry and having a women's only gym is awesome, because this is such a male dominated field.
It is. And I mean, I've had plenty of male mentors in the fitness industry who I have incredible respect for. But I do think that there's something to be said for a space that specializes in the female anatomy. And that's really what we do. It's not like we're like a man hater club. That's not at all the case. We actually do have a couple private clients who are male. It's not even that. It's literally just that we specialize in the female anatomy. And I think there has to be a level of empathy involved in that.
Absolutely.
And so like a women's gym owned by a man might be a little confusing, I feel, for...
of course, just in terms of like relating, like you just won't understand what it's like to be pregnant and have a child and raise a kid and breastfeed and hormones and It's
also like creating a safe space for somebody that is new to fitness that doesn't want to just go into a commercial gym.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, like, they feel like everybody's watching them, even though, like, for the most part, people aren't. But, like,
Oh, no, they are.
they are some, but, like, a lot of people are doing their own thing
Yeah.
and whatnot. But at the same time, like, having a safe space for them makes it a lot easier to get to at least to get started and then stick with it.
Yeah,
too.
it's super non-intimidating, and that was a big goal for us in our space to begin with, and then moving into the new space was to make it like aesthetically pleasing, not look or smell like a gym, and make it like very bright and feminine and feel like, you know, you can be in here and not worry about having your makeup done or having your matching Lululemon outfit, and everyone else watching you, because genuinely none of the other members are watching what you're doing unless it's like a moment where you're about to do a PR and they're all like, that's amazing. You know, it's like that is the one thing that our clients, they all come in, they get their workout in, you know, they get great coaching along the way, and then they can leave. They're not worried about being self-conscious at all.
Yeah, that's big. When did you first realize, okay, I need to hire somebody?
Yeah, so so when I first opened, I was mainly working Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, because that's when I had childcare.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people who were looking for like mostly Wednesday, Friday. They're like, well, are you open Wednesday, Friday? And I was like, no. So I had actually worked with a trainer at Fitness Artist who had since moved on to another facility, and I knew she wasn't like all that happy where she was. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, you know, I know that you're not happy where you are. Are you interested in coming to work with me? And she was like, absolutely. So she joined me a few months after I opened. And so I had her for a little while. And then I hired a couple other part-time people too, to just cover the hours, just to cover demand. So I knew I had to like justify, obviously the revenue had to be equal with whatever, you know, I was paying someone to do it. So it just sort of like the team kind of started to come together a little bit. So it was a whole new adventure being a boss.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
You're just now you're dealing with psychology and people
Yeah.
and
People management.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been the hardest for me. I feel like I've gotten better over the years. Like it was just I went into it. It was just myself, and I started with a business partner, Dan, who I knew in college. So it was him and I went in together. He was at Vent. He had clients from Vent, so we brought some over, kind of like you said, to give us some revenue to start.
Yep.
But I look back to the early days, just him and I. Like I was a terrible communicator. Yeah, I just was like I either like was nervous to express my feelings,
Right.
Didn't want to upset him or make him feel a different
Right,
type
exactly.
of way.
Yeah.
And then it's like you just realize over time, like the more I hold this in, I don't share how I'm feeling, the
Yeah.
shittier I'm gonna feel.
Right.
Things I may not like are just gonna keep happening. Like
Yep.
I just gotta. It's hard though.
It is, and I think I was sort of eased into it in the sense that like the first hire that I had, she was super clean. She's very by the book. She's also a massage therapist, which she, you know, couldn't do in our space because we didn't have the space, but she just was very professional, and so I really did not have to worry too much about her. It was only when we got, you know, a few more hires later down the line that I was like, okay, I need like standard operating procedures because people can't read my mind. They need to know
that's a
how
good
I
point.
need things to run. So it was like, and I had to be not micromanaging, but also like making sure that like standards were clear, because I never wanted a space where it was like people were renting from me
Yeah.
and like doing their own thing. I
Like,
was like, no,
Your people are employees.
they're employees.
Same
They
here.
always have been.
I would never do a 1099. We had early
No.
on people ask to like just 1099 here, and I'm like, no, I'm building a thing. I'm building a sustainable
Well, it
thing.
only takes one occurrence for someone to turn around and go, yeah, I got hurt at that gym. And it was with someone who you were like, well, I
That-
didn't know that happened, or like, I didn't authorize that. It's like,
Or-
doesn't matter. It's your reputation.
Yeah, I had worked at a gym in Boston where it wasn't run great, and we were employees, but really we acted like 1099s, and I would see people leave, and I go, wow, they have a client roster of let's say $300,000 a year, right, for the gym that comes in. They're gone, and about almost all of that revenue is now gone. And I go, this owner must be shitting his pants.
Right.
Like one person left, and now you're down $300K. Like terrifying. I never want that to happen to me.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so seeing that was incentive to me to make something unified.
Yep.
I also like that, like at your space, does everybody kind of share clients? They coach
Yes.
I think that's huge.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not like a this is my client situation ever,
Yeah,
which is so great.
It's so healthy as a workforce. Now you're a team.
Exactly. And like, one person's success leads into the other person's success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the clients feel that too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
And it makes it easier, like, if you have to be out, like, even if it's a one-on-one client and you got to be out, you go, hey, you've worked with this person before.
Yep.
Like, they're going to be with you today, like X, Y, and Z, or you've at least had a conversation with them,
Yep.
and you know who they are. So now it's easier to kind of be like, okay, they're going to work with you today just because I can't be here. It's the only day you can get in.
Yep.
And we're going to still be able to get
Well,
it
think
working
about
today.
you now with your family. It's like you want to be with your kids and with
Exactly.
your husband, but you want to make money still and have
Yep.
things like, run at a standard that you want them to run at.
Yep.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong too in this industry is they may have the space and maybe the knowledge themselves, but they're not a good leader and they don't know how to create like systems that scale what they do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you always have to be trying to improve your systems and looking for mentors that can help you to do that. And I didn't realize that until I'd been open for, like 4 years. I was like, oh, I think I need help. I think I need someone to show me how to do this because I don't think I'm doing it very well. So, yeah.
In what aspects?
So I think like with like as far as leadership goes and growth and being able to delegate things so you're not going nuts all the time. I wasn't good at delegating. And I'm not a type A person at all. I'm very laid back, but I knew that there were certain things that had to be done in a certain way. And I just didn't know how to manage the people that I was, managing, the coaches that were working for me. Especially, again, as they took on more hours and I was there less, I didn't want to hear from clients like, well, this coach did this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I have to I wanted more systems. I wanted more organization. And I needed a better plan for marketing and sales and all that kind of stuff. So I did seek out a mentorship and I was in a program for 2 years. I worked with the Unicorn Society.
Oh, that's Mark Fisher.
Yes.
Did Pete do stuff with you or
Yeah.
no?
Yeah.
Pete's great. See, I interned at Cressy's way back in
Oh,
the
okay,
day.
yeah.
Yeah, so Pete, that was in
The
20.
OG.
The OG. I was at I was in their second year at their bigger Massachusetts space.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was Eric, Pete, Tony, Greg Robbins. It was like the OG squad.
Yeah, that's a great group to learn from.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here without that.
Yeah.
Without Pete, without Eric, without Tony. Yeah, just good dudes.
Yeah, so being in that mentorship program was immensely helpful. It just was so great for me to get my systems down and really figure out what direction we were going rather than flying by the seat of my pants, because that's what I do in all aspects of my life. Ask my husband. Everything is last minute. Everything is I need a deadline. I don't do anything in advance. And so having those things actually written down, especially when it came to finances and planning, it was really important that I got that. So, I think definitely figuring out, who can I learn from is really important.
And it just shows how small this industry really is as you kind of move along. Yeah, Pete, yeah, him and probably Mike Reinold and Eric, the biggest influence for me in terms of how to set up here and what to do.
If you're doing things right, you kind of end up with a lot of the same people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. How many employees do you have now?
So I have, I think it's 5. Let's see. Yeah, 5 employees. So yeah,
that's great.
It's a great team.
Yeah,
Are they all full-time, part-time?
So only one full-time. The other ones are all part-time and have other gigs in their life. But Mary is my full-timer and she just took over the role of GM this week. So very
Congrats.
excited.
Congrats
Shout out to Mary.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. She's my right-hand girl. But everyone else has other jobs, which I find is actually really great because they've brought in a lot of assets from those other jobs. And it's nice that they're part-time. They don't have to rely 100% on, training as paying their
Yeah, that's
bills.
helpful. That's how we've brought on all our employees. Paul we brought on part-time, moved to full. And then, Matt, he's going to go full-time next month, but he's been part-time. He had side gigs. He was in school. He was doing substitute teaching. Yeah. And then working towards the full-time. Yeah,
that may, especially in this industry, one of the things people, I remember when I first started personal training, they were like, have a job with this so you don't feel like this is what the only thing you have to do, because if you lose one client, then you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah, right.
And so like I worked in like retail and everything like that. That's where I got like a lot of my like management skills, things like that, was because I was a manager in retail, and that allowed me to be able to have a steady income with it. And then eventually when I was living in New York City, I became like just a full-time trainer, and that was like, I was like, wow, this is really nice. One job.
Yeah,
This is
right.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you can focus on that one thing.
The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas makes my favorite pair of socks, hands down, alongside the most comfortable and durable underwear, t-shirts, and other everyday clothing staples. Their wide variety of sock lengths, colors, and patterns have you covered, whether you're working out, going out, or lounging at home. I love their merino wool blend athletic ankle sock for long days of coaching at CDSF and getting in workouts myself. And if I'm at home doing work around the house, you better believe I'm wearing my Bombas Sunday slippers with their comfy memory foam midsole. And when you buy from Bombas, you're also buying for those in need. For every item you purchase, Bombas donates one item to people in overnight shelters, transitional living facilities, rehab centers, Title I schools, and medical service professionals. Take my word, if you want to upgrade your sock game to one that's more comfortable, durable, fashionable, and charitable, head over to the Bombas link in this episode's description to browse their full collection of everyday wear, and don't forget to use code CDSF20 for 20% off your first order. Have you been back to coaching since you had your last son?
No.
It's nice.
I'm not going back. Some people know that, some people don't.
Okay, well, whenever this releases,
now
then.
everyone knows. I mean, I've been taking more and more of a managerial, administrative position.
And you're happy with that? That's what fits your life?
Yeah, that was the goal.
That's awesome then.
Yeah, and I, my husband has covered a lot, like while working full time, has covered a lot with the kids over the past several years as we've been building. And, now I'm like going to give him a chance to kind of do his thing in the way that he wants to do it rather than being like super stressed all the time. So, yeah, I think I owe that to him. So
and to yourself, if that's what you want. Like, it's great. Yeah, but the work you've had to put in to set up systems and have things run how you want. So things can kind of keep going and growing. Yeah,
and I'll always be present at my gym, and I'm there like pretty much every day doing something or other. But coaching wise, I don't necessarily plan to go back to regular coaching hours.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what does it take for you to train and onboard a new coach in terms of working with, the population you do? Let's just say, women going through either before pregnancy and then going through pregnancy and postpartum.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because all my coaches have like a very different story. Thankfully, I really haven't had to like cold hire, as it were. I haven't really had to have a lot of people come in as like, kind of like having no experience. Right. So I would say typically what we try to do, and this was hiring someone out of my clientele actually, we had her shadow for like 3-ish months. So just following us around while we did the small group sessions and like some one-on-ones. And we just kind of teach on the go. And then they would do some observed coaching for, a few weeks. And then if we were good with what we were seeing, and we just kind of let them be independent and like slowly feed in hours. Thankfully, I've never had to like put anyone full-time on the floor like right away because that's scary to me. But yeah, that's kind of what we tend to do, like tend to have like shadowing, a lot of hands-on. All of our coaches are StrongFirst certified. So that's another like requirement for us.
So you'll do a lot of kettlebell stuff then?
Yep, kettlebell, barbell, body weight.
I love
That's awesome.
kettlebells.
Yeah.
I love kettlebells.
I know they're a great tool.
I use them all the time for
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's a
pretty much
tool,
every
right?
workout.
It's like it's not the only tool, but it's
No.
a tool.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
accomplish a lot of things with it.
It is. Bicep curls, all that good stuff. Tricep extensions.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I guess let's talk like training during pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's more than just don't lie on your back,
Yeah.
right?
Can't hear that again.
Yeah. So let's talk like are there things you're thinking each trimester? Like, okay, these are kind of priorities or these are big contraindications and
Yeah.
things that you want to educate these women about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think firstly it's important to like reassure everyone that every pregnancy is different. So it's not a matter of like you have to abide by all of these guidelines in order to like work out safely when you're pregnant. I think a lot of times women are bombarded by, again, information that they've heard from here, there, and everywhere, or they've Googled, or their OBGYN who's 85 and a man has, told them, like, don't lift over 20 pounds. That's my favorite one I hear.
Right.
Like, how big is your toddler that you have to lift every day?
Right.
It's exhausting. But yeah, so I would say everyone's pregnancy is different. So right, so that's the first thing I always tell people is like don't have expectations that like this is what it has to look like to have a successfully active pregnancy. You have to be willing to be flexible. And I can tell you, like with all 5 of my children, every pregnancy was different, and so my activity was different during my pregnancies. And so to avoid putting pressure on yourself is like the number one thing. When you're in first trimester, I find that most women are super fatigued and or nauseous. And so a lot of times they don't have that excess energy that they really had before to feel like they wanted to work out, to feel motivated to work out. And so in that case, and a lot of times with our members, we find that we're among the first people that really know that they're pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one else knows. And they're like, I'm pregnant. I just took a test yesterday. I'm like, okay, great. Like, that's okay. You're fine. Just carry on with whatever, you've been doing. That's fine. But also keep in mind that you might have to have a little bit more patience with yourself, and you might feel like, less likely to come in. So we had one member who's been with us. So now she's pregnant with her second, and she was with us through her first pregnancy and has been with us since. And so she just found out she's expecting her second, and she did take off about 4 weeks of time. She was like, I just can't even think about going to the gym. I feel so awful. I'm like, that's completely fine. Don't worry about it. We'll pause you, for your 4 weeks, and then you just come back whenever you're ready. So she started up again about a week and a half ago, and she's doing great. And she's doing a lot of the same stuff she was doing before she got pregnant. And so a lot of it, because there's no real visible changes in first trimester for most people. I mean, there was for me because it was my 5th baby, but for a lot of people, like you just don't have to consider too many changes just because there really isn't that much, except, more rest time. So I usually tell people like try to get outside as much as you can and like walk if you can't do anything else, or go through the motions with like your lifts. Like, so don't worry about, lifting heavy, just keep moving.
Right.
So if they can do that, then that's important.
How important is it to have, or it can be helpful to have some baseline like strength, how your body should move, controlling your pelvis and rib cage and spine,
Yep.
like so then you don't have to kind of do all this motor learning while you're growing a little one inside you.
Yeah, it's very helpful to have some sort of like active background already. I think that the likelihood of you sticking to a program when you're pregnant is it's a lot higher if you've already been active pre-pregnancy, for sure. But it's like things can change so drastically that I've had many women start with me like having never lifted before, and then they start when they're pregnant, and actually they've done really well, and have continued then postpartum. So we can definitely teach women when they're pregnant. It's just like you just have to be aware that it's going to shift again postpartum.
Right.
It's your body's just going to change, and it's going to change again.
Right.
So, but yeah, once you get into like second trimester, it tends to be more so like, okay, now we're starting to be aware that like you're starting to show, your belly's starting to expand, the rib cage is expanding, pelvic floor might be under a little bit more pressure. And so, again, some women can kind of continue on, but we tend to bring more awareness to like the breathing sequences, because a lot of times if things are more effort or if you're under more strain, you tend to breath hold a little bit more, which isn't necessarily bad in and of itself, but a lot of times it can cause pressure management issues down the line. So we just kind of like bring people's attention to those kind of things, and we start to train the core a little bit differently. So it tends to be like less flexion in the spine and more so like anti-rotation, a lot of like carries, so like femur carries, suitcase carries, that kind of thing.
You're training into less of a posterior tilt, less of a lumbar flexion, or depends?
So it depends. We tend to see some really excessive lumbar extension during pregnancy in some women. It just depends on their body. And we're not necessarily trying to overcorrect that, because if we overcorrect that, a lot of times it can cause more issues than it can solve. So it's less of like corrective exercise when you're pregnant, and it's more so like, okay, what position do you feel best in? Right. Keeping like rib cage over hips is good, but we're not gonna like be really like, you know, tilting the pelvis underneath. We're not gonna be tucking the tailbone under excessively. That's not necessarily the goal. A lot of times we work in tandem with like a Webster certified chiropractor and pelvic floor physical therapist.
You work with Heather or Deb?
Yeah, so I know them. Yeah, I know them. So we have a pelvic floor PT in our facility, so she's who I refer to.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I've known Deb for years.
Yeah. That's who. Usually Heather or Deb. That's who my wife's seen, and that we've just kind of met. And
there's a lot of pelvic floor PTs now in this area, which is wonderful because there were like 0 when I had my second and like wanted to see one. It was really only Deb, and then there was like Albany Memorial Pelvic Health Center. And then those are like the only 2. But now there's like a lot of more private practices.
And your PT at your facility at Her Strength, is it cash-based?
Yes.
So they can spend an hour with somebody and educate. Yeah, see, that's the benefits of that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really understand that. And they're like, well, why is it so expensive? I'm like, because she's actually going to like spend time with you and help you with your outcomes. She doesn't have 15 minutes to like do pelvic floor stuff, because you need more than that. That's like a little bit of, it's like a hard, it's a hard situation to be in for many women, and it can be very traumatic. It can be stressful.
Yeah, especially if you do manual therapy and then exercise as well. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so there's a lot involved with that, but yeah, so we always want to like talk about pelvic floor and core in second trimester, so that you're ready when you hit third trimester and you're like, oh my gosh, I wake up every day and I'm larger. And you're like, you don't think you're going to get any bigger, and then you do. And then we can kind of like maintain through third trimester.
What are you focusing on with breathing? Are these like positional breathing drills? You're cueing breathing during core exercises?
Yeah, so a lot of it is just being able to get that 360-degree diaphragmatic breath. So a lot of times what happens is, as like the baby gets bigger and your diaphragm is getting kind of crushed and your lungs capacity is, obviously decreased, it's a matter of really being able to continue nasal breathing and continue that 360 breath, because that's what's going to help you to recover postpartum. And that's also what can help you in third trimester. It can help to regulate your nervous system and also can help you in early stages of labor if you understand how to breathe. And so because we know that the diaphragm is like interconnected with the core and the pelvic floor, it's all, a system, it's a piston system. So that's why we like kind of bring attention to that. So we always have women who are pregnant do at least 1 to 2 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing when they're doing their workouts. And then we cue breathing more within their workouts. So we're like, okay, inhale here, exhale here. How does that feel? If it doesn't feel right, try the opposite.
Right.
Because again, everyone's different. But typically we're working on down regulating like the engagement of pelvic floor, because a lot of times, and this is probably more than weakness, most women have hypertonic or like overly tight pelvic floors. And it's a lot of it, like, again, it's like a lot of nervous system, a lot of stress. And that's very hard to go into labor when you have a super tight pelvic floor. And so it's a matter of like, okay, here's where you're working hard, here's where you're contracting, and then now here's where you're relaxing.
Yeah, well, I guess let's just talk even then just training women in general in pelvic floor. Does doing like a really hard brace, can that lead to, if that's how you always brace, lead to like that hypertonic pelvic floor?
So it depends. I think it's more so of like the low level, always doing like a half Kegel at all times. And women will definitely like realize, like, you bring that to their attention and be like, okay, you're standing in the grocery store line. Like, what are you doing right now? Like, tuned into your pelvic floor. What's it doing? And most women are holding it up and really tight, and they're not relaxing. So when you think about, like, if you compare it to your fist, if you're like kind of holding your fist sort of tight all the time, and then you try to tighten it, it's not going to get much tighter, and it's really then a lot harder then to relax. So what you want to do is if you're using pelvic floor, we want to be aware that the contraction is fine, but you also want to be able to fully relax pelvic floor.
Right.
Some women can do this with just some simple verbal cues and visualization, and some women need pelvic PT to really be able to be like, okay, no, now do this. Nope, that's tightening. You need to be relaxing. Okay, like then so it's that's why there's so much value in pelvic floor PT, because you just don't even necessarily know what's going on.
Right.
I tell people that all the time because they're like, well, what can I do for my pelvic floor? I'm like, unfortunately, I don't know what's going on internally, so
Yeah,
you
and
may need to go see someone for that.
And it's way harder of a thing to probably cue and learn versus just like make a fist, just squeeze your bicep,
Yeah.
Exactly. So tension is important, but this is like a big reason why I love using kettlebells for women, because there's always a contrast between tension and relaxation. So if you think about like the kettlebell swing, for example, if you go like the back swing, so when you're in that hinge position, you have an open pelvic floor. So it's like a lengthened position.
Now you're open because your pelvis is tilted anteriorly.
Yep.
Okay.
So like, you know, your sits bones are separated in that backswing. And then when you come forward, the pelvic floor is in a shortened position and you get more tension. So that's when you're going, like with StrongFirst, we do the tension breath. So when you reach back and inhale, pelvic floor is relaxed or lengthened. And then when you come forward, you get that so intra-abdominal pressure, and then also that shortened position of pelvic floor up top. So you always want to have there's a contrast, because you've seen people, I'm sure, kettlebell swing where they're super high tension the whole time. They look like a robot.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And they have and then they're exhausted and they're like, my back hurts. And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, no shit. Because you like didn't breathe that entire time.
Right.
And then you were like, you didn't open your posterior pelvic floor. It
Can
was
we
just
say that
like,
could go the same for like a deadlifting variation?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
100%. And that's why it's so important for women to know how to hinge, because I actually think, and I've trained men and women, but I think comparatively, women have much tighter like positions, and it's harder for them to know how to hinge. They tend to squat. So like if you tell someone like, go pick up that big box over there, they're going to go down to like full knee flexion into a squat, and they're going to pick it up from there rather than setting their hips back into a hinge position. And why is that?
Right. Pelvic floor, harder time controlling
Pelvic floor,
a pelvis.
Yep. And like that position of the hips. So then they're not using their posterior chain muscles at all.
Right.
So like they're not using glutes, they're not using hamstrings, they're just using quads. And have you ever noticed that there's like so many knee problems with women?
Yep.
Because they're all like super anterior chain dominant.
Right.
So to teach them how to hinge, how to get into posterior chain, and to lengthen the posterior chain pelvic floor, and then to shorten it, like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be using.
Let's say let's say somebody has a deadlift as their main lift, but you want to, before they get under that load or that bigger of a movement pattern, you want to break some of this down to help them learn what they're supposed to be doing better.
Yep.
What are like regressions or teaching things you're doing before you get them to a deadlift?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. Like if we're talking about like, someone, so we'll say like someone who doesn't have any injuries, who's like, someone in their 30s and has never deadlifted, typically, like I probably would have said in a past life I'd have them bridge, but it's really hard to like translate that to a standing position.
Like, do you do any barbell hip thrust or glute bridging or no?
Yeah, we
Okay.
love that.
Okay.
Yeah, we love hip thrusts. They're great.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily use them as a teaching tool, because unless you're doing them body weight, the load is always going to put you into that anterior tilt a little bit. So if I'm going to teach the deadlift, I'm probably going to do a standing body weight hinge. So I'm going to have them like plant their feet on the floor, soft knees, lead with the hips coming back, and start to feel the length in their hamstrings. And then they're going to return that by squeezing their glutes and moving the hips forward. So shortening that position. And so sometimes that's just enough. And then like usually if I still think they're like maybe not safe to like lift from the floor, I'll have them lift off of like a yoga block or like a wooden block first. But typically like it tends to be only like those two patterns, like wall hinge and then lifting from a shorter range of motion and then bringing them down to the floor. And most people can get it. I think like the biggest issue is usually like lats that we're seeing, just a disconnect in the lats.
Like being able to engage, you're saying? Yeah.
That's why I like using the like I've done it with people in here, even with people that have like low back stuff.
The PVC drill
where
that you use?
The PVC, like an R&T hip hinge.
Yep.
So you use a PVC in a band.
Yeah.
And then that also helps them understand the hinge part too.
Yeah.
Because you're like, they're like, oh, I have to do
Well,
this.
yeah, you're feeling the
That's
resistance.
how they
of the
teach it
band.
at StrongFirst.
Yeah.
That's how they teach the hinge.
And like that's made a huge, especially with some of our athletes that are like super knee dominant. That I'm like, you don't know how to use your hips at all.
Yeah.
And that's where sports start, is in your hips. Like we need to like use those.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And mix it in like in real life.
Yeah.
You have to use your hips all the time.
I also feel like, because you brought up like going from like a bridge or a hip thrust to deadlift, is harder to kind of connect those two. I think it's easier to go from like the deadlift, and then when they're doing a hip thrust or a bridge, connecting it that way. And then
Exactly.
when you stand up in the deadlift, like think like that.
Yeah, because you have to visualize in a bridge, you're lowering your butt to the floor, your pelvis is moving forward, and then you're coming up, and then your posterior tilting back.
Right.
Because there's times where like I'll have somebody on like doing like a one leg hip thrust, and then I'll have them do 2 legs, and I'm like, okay, now think like we're deadlifting, bring those hips back up, and then they're like, oh, that makes sense. And I'm like, all right, now do 1 leg, and then they get it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think cueing from the rib cage is really important with the hip thrust too, because again, a lot of times, especially if they have a lot of flexibility in like lower back, they're going to like disconnect and like kind of tip too much.
Yeah.
So then it's coming from lumbar movement, which is like, obviously we know, no bueno. So we want to like connect the rib cage first. Like, okay, your anterior chain is also involved in your hip thrust, and then try to drive through the floor.
Yeah.
So.
Just getting people to learn that, hey, your rib cage moves, it has to descend down, as your pelvis comes back. And now we can get, your obliques, your rectus abdominis, like everything at your transverse in a good position to be able to do work.
Yeah. I think people, if a lot of times, if you are in like a suboptimal breathing position for the most of the day, it's really hard to cue from the rib cage for people.
Yeah. Well,
So-
people get tight. They get tight, and that thing does not want to move down.
That's exactly it. And so that's one of the first things that we teach postpartum is like learning how to move the rib cage and how to use the rib cage in breathing and then in core movement. So it's like, okay, we're talking about like alignment, but just being able to connect the brain with the rib cage and moving it
and some parasympathetic nervous system benefit when you have a good exhale. Like, there's just so many pluses.
Of course. Yeah. Because, like, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, when people are stressed, they're tight. And then, like, why am I so tight? And I'm like, because you're so stressed. Calm down.
Yeah, you see,
Relax.
you see almost, right? Like, you do a lot of powerlifting, you lift heavy, you have this extension dominant pattern, erectors are tight, hip flexors are tight, core is weak, posterior chain is weak. But it's like sympathetic drive in life can do that too. Like, our sympathetic fight or flight response is like, we're going to extend up, we're going to pick our head up, and like, same muscle groups getting tight. So you think about your low level like that all fucking day, every day.
Tack neck.
Yeah. That.
Well, and think about like a lot of times, tell somebody stand up straight, and the first thing they do is,
dude,
and you're like, that's not straight at all.
Jordan,
that's actually the opposite.
I got home last night, and it was just like our daughter's into Blippi right now, and Mika, that just like overstimulates me all the time. I don't know if it does to you. He's a fucking, but that's on the TV. Sia's playing some game on the iPad. Jordan, you should see, she's like scrolling. No, it's like she knows what she's hitting. I'm like, this is fucking terrifying. I'm like, Sam, can you shut one of these off right now? her and my mother-in-law were drinking a glass of wine, just trying to chill out.
Yeah, right, of course. And it's like anything that
Here
will
you go,
distract
Sia.
them.
Yeah, you just do all
like,
this.
Just do this for a
get
little
that.
while.
I totally get that. Yeah, we recently like turned off the TV in our house because I couldn't take it anymore. Like, we had to turn this off.
I just think how much these YouTubers get paid, because they get paid in watch hours. Sometimes we just put that shit on and it's just on. I'm like, oh my God, how many people are doing this? And then
I
they get bank right now.
YouTubers give me great pause though. I think they're all kind of creepy, honestly.
Yeah,
but
of course. Jordan, you agree?
Yeah, that's the right read.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
point.
agree.
Who do you hate the most on YouTube?
I actually don't let my kids on YouTube at all. But I have heard stories about Mr. Beast recently, and they're not good.
Weird, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, no Mr. Beast.
Yeah, one of my they were reading actually like a Guinness Book of World Records book from the library. Like, I was like my 9-year-old, and he was like, there was some sort of record, and he's like, oh, was it from a YouTuber, Mr. Beast? Who's that? And I was like, you will never know.
Well, I don't know. Are we at a point now, if you assume somebody's like that famous, like, no, they're probably kind of corrupt and pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
It's like,
right. Well, I mean, money is money, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
We'll corrupt the best of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, dude, because you opened in 2018, so you did COVID in New York as a gym owner.
Yes.
You're talking about corruption.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I'll make sure I steer us out of this if I need to.
Sorry, go. I mean, fucking crazy.
Oh, I'll happily go down this rabbit hole if you want.
Yeah, it was just fucking crazy. Like, nobody knew what was going on.
No.
So we opened both May and 2018. I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way. Financially for us, if it happened years later, I could have been in a worse spot because we have, we had expanded. We were 3,000 square feet to start. I got 45 now. It was just myself and Dan, my business partner. So 2 employees. I now have 5. Yeah, so it's just we had less expenses going out.
Right.
So I was able to coast by for those 4 months or whatever, where if I had more money going out, it would be way more terrifying.
Right.
So the timing was like okay, but
Right.
still scary.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely, it was very uncertain. I actually look back and I think like I don't actually remember any details from that time at all. I just remember like just general overfeeling of like, I just have to get through this. You just have to like do what you have to do.
You offered online stuff.
We offered online immediately because I saw what was coming down the pike.
People kept paying.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
so
said
good,
I was like,
good.
go get kettlebells, like order kettlebells, and then you're gonna do things at home. We're gonna live stream, and they were like, okay. So we actually did that until June, and then June 1st, when New York cleared golf and tennis, I was like, okay, we're opening outside. So because we had a really nice patio in our first space, and there really wasn't anything on it, and the offices around us were closed. Actually, we were next to iCryo. I don't know if you know iCryo or
I know of it.
the owner,
No.
but he didn't ever shut down. It was kind of
And
hilarious.
that's what was weird too, because some people just did it and nothing.
Yep.
It's just nobody knew what the fuck was going
Right.
on.
Well, he had some connections apparently with like some police in the area.
That's
Anyway,
what all gets fucked,
anyway,
yeah.
so we June 1st, we opened outside. We got a bunch of horse stall mats. We put them down. We had people put yoga mats on top. We brought all the equipment outside. We brought it in and out every single night. I brought those mats in and out every single night. I never lifted a horse stall
Dude,
mat. But
the
they
first
are,
day must have been that June 1st, whatever the fuck it was. We did the same thing. Back parking lot.
Yep.
Bought gym flooring, cut it up.
Yep.
Put it out there. At one point later on in the summer, we bought like a big graduation party tent, but we had pop-up tents like to shade people.
Yeah.
I think it rained or stormed that first or second day. Our tents blew away and all broke. And I go, Dan, let's just quit. Like, this is a
Never mind.
sign. We're done,
Yeah,
bro.
right. Well, we were out there like at least 3-4 days a week with outdoor classes. We got the cops calling us every single day.
Like, who the fuck is calling the cops?
I think that it was a former client, to be honest, like in retrospect. And like
Was it Mr. Beast?
It was Mr.
Fuck
Beast. He was
Mr.
calling the
Beast.
cops. He definitely would have been a narc for sure. Yeah, no, I think we're also on Troy Schenectady Road. So we were like,
main
we were
road.
very visible.
Yeah.
And I was like, people are probably like, it might have been people around that were calling. I don't know.
Karens.
A lot. So many of them. It was really bad. But like every time the cops came, they were like, hey, you're not supposed to be open. I'm like, well, we're outside. And they're like, okay, see you tomorrow. I was like, okay,
Jesus.
see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
So they actually stopped coming, and they started calling me. And they're like, hey, Nora, we got another call. We just have to let you know because like it gets reported to the Department of Health. And I was like, well, I don't answer the Department of Health, so
Right.
thanks.
Yeah, that was wild. So yeah, we did the fucking outside, and it like almost for us, because of our youth population, there was no high school sports, no sports going on. So it was like when everybody was sitting at home, I'd just say a slingshot got pulled back, we opened, it was just like leads like crazy. So we were fortunate in that
That's
sense.
great, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I brought Paul on, and we kind of got going. But then it just got weird, because then at another point, wasn't it like malls could open and then we couldn't?
Yeah.
Were you part of that one group?
Everything. Yes.
The guy
Yep.
Charlie?
Yep.
He was cool as shit.
He definitely did a really good job
He
advocating.
really did it. He was kind of a legend.
Yeah, he was great. He was really good. I mean, I very much appreciated everything that he did.
Me
I don't
too.
even know where the hell he is, but
I don't see him on Facebook anymore. We're friends. I never see him post.
Yeah.
I don't know his last name, but this guy Charlie.
He probably
just,
said, fuck social media. I'm out this bitch.
oh,
Sure.
he definitely said fuck everything.
But he
I'm out.
really was like, we think about in our industry, you have like the Cressies, the Boyles, these guys who like kind of, they're just kind of the leaders. They did all the business models. They gave people guidance. This is the Girls Gone Strong, the Pete's, the Business for Unicorns. But it's like this guy, Charlie, never heard of the guy, owned some CrossFit in like Long Island.
Yep.
He himself, I think, he organized a
He
group,
did.
small gym owners like us, nobody with a lot of money, not like the
Yep.
events and all those big gyms, and just got a lawyer.
Yep.
I think they sued.
Yeah, they started advocating like big time. It was great. I mean, at the time, obviously, that we didn't really have anything else to do, so that was like, all right, let's just like really focus on this. And actually, it connected me with some other like gym owners in this area. My friend Dean, who owned Black Sheep Athletics, you know of them?
No.
So they're closed, but they're a CrossFit like offshoot of Albany CrossFit, like all the CrossFit gyms in this area. And my friend Dean like started this like Zoom group and invited me, and he was like, hey, like me and a couple other gym owners like are gonna like talk about what we can do in like situation we're in, just get some empathy. He's like, do you want to join? I was like, yeah. So like it was like every like Wednesday at 1 o'clock or something, like we would all Zoom together. So I got to know like a bunch of other gym owners in the area, which was really nice.
Which is cool because also this field, because of the egos, a lot of people will just shit on other people. It's not how I would train. And you have this scarcity mentality. Like if they're doing well, that could be clients for me and I can't get them.
For sure.
And this for a minute in this group, I was like, everybody's kind of together here.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it was nice to get like united, and now I have like a different view of like some of the other business owners in the area, which is nice. So, you know, there were positives that came out of it for sure, but most of it was terribly negative.
Terribly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, then we ran pods here for too long, and then it started to be we're like, what the fuck are we still doing pods for?
Yeah, we did.
Let's
I
get rid
remember
of
that.
these.
We had the
Oh,
fucking
God.
taped
Yeah.
up. There's still tape marks
tape
there.
marks
that
on the
shit up.
floor.
Yep.
I know. Well, I'm so glad I moved out of my old space because
Get rid of those.
we couldn't get rid of the tape marks on the floor, and it was like bringing me like, you know, PTSD every time I was looking.
The
I was
worst
like,
part about the tape on the floor for us was when we had to take it up, and
I'm obsessed.
some of the tape was duct tape.
And some
oh,
was.
no.
And then
Why would
some-
you use duct tape?
Well, the duct tape was easy
Because
Really?
some was.
because some was Gorilla Tape.
That adhesive is.
And we were literally on our hands and knees scraping it off the fucking
yeah.
floor.
Jordan, worse than any period of time, like used to paint houses. Any time, like scraping a house, this was like a million
like
times.
literally had to use
Yeah.
like your fingernails.
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly what we were doing, too.
It was terrible.
We used painter's tape actually
Oh, it's
on
probably
our floors
comes
because it
off
was
easier.
purple.
Smarter, Jay,
so-
right?
That's
Much
nice.
smarter.
I like that.
It was nice. It was
Nice
nice to
little
be
color.
the
Why
aesthetic.
didn't you think of painter's tape?
Why doesn't Mike think of a lot of things?
If you leave, I will tell you though, if you leave painter's tape on the floor for 6 months, guess what happens?
It becomes the floor.
It becomes the floor.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that was
So
not,
duct
that was
tape
not a
was
good choice.
duct tape would be the move in that case going forward.
We should have had Mr. Beast and Cuomo come scrape it off. Sorry.
Cuomo.
Fuck that guy.
I'm
And
so-
fuck Mr. Beast.
Well, he did.
All right, back to core training. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. General core training for females. What are the biggest, like not even during pregnancy, but probably like you shouldn't train your core this way or these exercises because it's just not great for pelvic floor or like general like core and back health?
Yeah, so if you had asked me that maybe like a couple years ago, I probably would have said, don't do crunches, don't do sit-ups, like just avoid like flexion And now I don't say that anymore. I don't think any movement pattern is like off the table for women. I think because we live our lives in flexion, most people in spinal flexion, most people need extension.
Because
And
you're saying sitting is in spinal flexion.
yeah, like not even just like, but like again, like tech neck, right? You're
Right.
looking at your phone, you're looking at your computer, you're always in a little bit of flexion. So most people need extension. And most people need thoracic extension specifically. But honestly, the way that the spine is designed to move, like it has to move in every range of motion, right? So
I used to be in that camp too. No, Stuart McGill, flexing your spine, credit card, right?
Yes.
When you're young, you like live and die by that. But then you're
Yes.
like, yeah, my spine has to move.
yeah, I mean, it has to move dynamically, right? So it has to rotate, it has to flex, it has to extend,
I think
it
what people
has
have
to
to accept
laterally
is
rotate.
that when I'm lifting under heavy load, that's a different scenario than me just moving around day to day.
Exactly. And I think the nature of us losing athleticism as a population, and definitely women are included in this. We lose the ability to move our spine in certain ways, and especially like ballistically, right? Like if you have to do something quick, or if you're shoveling your driveway and you like that, those are the situations in which someone throws out their back.
You got to be in some shape to shovel anyways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, shoveling's no joke.
So
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's your training method, then that's fine. But it's going to be, like you're like, oh, I hurt my back, But I think being prepared for all things is important. I think that now I look at core training as an integral piece of all lifts. So, like for example, if I'm going to do like a barbell front squat, my core is on fire because I'm holding that bar across the front of my shoulders, and if I drop the bar, like that's not going to be good, right? I'm not going to get the lift. So really me trying to like keep my spine in a good position is a huge part of core training. I also think deadlifting is a great way to train your core. So like a lot of women will come in and they'll be like, I really want to train my core. I need to get rid of this fat around here, right? And we know that's not a thing. But anyway, but the point is like if you want to feel strong in your core, you've got to be able to put it in a good position for all the things that you do.
What about people who, let's say you're doing a dead bug variation,
Yep.
and they're just like, I just don't feel it. You're like, I want you to be able to make this feel like some work. Do you run into that with people?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we have a lot of women who do Pilates, and so they do a lot of core training, so to speak. And so a lot of times what we give them in their program doesn't necessarily feel hard. So sometimes it's a matter of just saying like, so it's actually you maintaining this position. That is how you're supposed to feel it. It's not going to feel like burny because you're not going to fatigue the muscle. It's more just like getting and staying in that, maintaining this position. We have tons of dead bug variations. I love like a good dead bug floor press with like 2 kettlebells, which like tends to like make people work harder. I like throw like a mini band across the feet, put them in a hollow position. A lot of times like just like giving them those variations will help them to quote unquote feel it. But yeah, a lot of times it's like they're like, well, you might not feel it, but it's doing something, I promise.
Yeah, it's just the education you have to give them then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, what about you get into like third trimester and your body's producing more elastin because you need to be able to open up your pelvis and be able to go through labor and have your kid. What are things you're thinking about then in terms of like I always think, okay, I got to be careful probably loading some end ranges. Or no?
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. I mean, the presence of relaxin in the body is definitely much more so within pregnancy. We always have a little bit of it, but everyone's different. I have yet to see anyone get like a stretch injury, not under my watch anyway, during pregnancy. So I will say, like, I think that's exaggerated a little bit. I just don't. I think doing yoga is more of a concern when it comes to that kind of thing. Like really like stretching a ton when you're in yoga might be a little bit less, but like when you're lifting, it's not necessarily like, I think actually I really loved that I could squat deep when I was pregnant, like more easily than outside pregnancy, just only slightly. But I liked that because I was like, okay, like I'm getting into like a full range of motion.
But you felt that,
here.
like, okay, I can get to this range that I was not going to get to before.
Yeah. But that being said, too, like there's other things that, like, obviously your belly's in the way, so like you can't do like a pistol squat because you're more flexible,
right?
Because you run into your belly, so it's not a thing.
Kind of like a spare tire in the way. There,
yeah, exactly. So it's like when when you're doing back squats and you're at like, you know, maybe 70% of what you were doing before, it's like, okay, I'm doing less load, but actually I'm doing more range of motion. So I feel good about that. As long as you're in control,
Right. That's good.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that makes, if you're controlling your joint position, like you're probably not going to have a stretch injury.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of women who are like, I don't know if you've ever like seen people who have like, you know, they're like excessively flexible.
Yeah, you have these hypermobility. They're like you have like the Baton scale on people, like where it's like there's a screen, 9 moves, the pinky, the thumb touch the wrist, elbow hyperextend. Yeah, you have those 9 out of 9 Batons.
Very common with women, especially women who have autoimmune issues. Like I think it's like Ehlers-Danlos. Yeah, that's it. So like we see that sometimes too, and that can be more exaggerated when you're pregnant. But I think generally speaking, just keeping someone in like a more mid like range of motion is advisable anyway. Because if they've got like crazy flexible shoulders, we know that like them being back here is not going to be as strong as them being here. Right. So
it's just good quality training principles.
So
right.
Basically just being able to control the range of motion that you're going to be going into, and if you can't, shorten the range of motion.
Exactly. And then it's just like postpartum, like bringing awareness back to those movement patterns and trying to figure out where your body is at this point and what you need to like focus on and work on.
What about when you're training like pain during pregnancy? Like what makes you filter through like, okay, we maybe should stop doing this first, like this is okay, whether it's like back pain or round ligament pain or...
Yeah, so it depends. Typically with round ligament pain, it's sort of transient, like it'll kind of come and go for most women. Usually you feel that more so when you're like when the baby's going through a growth spurt. And you can see like a PT or a chiropractor who can do some like soft tissue work within the round ligament, and that's like very helpful, I think. But like as far as like back pain, I think the main things I see are back pain and pubic bone issues. So like pubic symphysis dysfunction is like where the pubic bone can shift and you get like basically like shearing pain. And it can really be, I had it when 2 of my pregnancies, my earlier pregnancies, it can be very limiting when it comes to single leg things. So like lunges, split squats, step ups. It depends on like how severe it is, but like typically like anything that's going to put you your like feet on different planes is going to be a problem. And so there's definitely been situations in which I would advise like it's probably not worth putting you in pain to do this exercise. Like they could like replace it with like a single leg march or something, but it's like basically like we know this is only going to be through pregnancy and maybe a little bit of postpartum. And so let's worry about this post. So a lot of times, like if there's like a lunge in the program, we'll just swap it out for a squat. And you know, that's so and like back pain, I would say, we typically try to figure out why there's back pain. Again, like I tend to like refer out if there's pain going on. And a lot of times even like just a chiropractic adjustment can be really helpful, or even like a prenatal massage with someone who really knows their stuff can be really helpful. But a lot of times it's like from standing all day. Right. That's like typically what we see it from. Or like if you're like parenting a toddler while pregnant, that's hard. So we try to get to the root of it, but I try not to eliminate any sort of movement pattern if we can. So
you have women that have trained through their whole pregnancy?
Yeah, a lot.
That's awesome.
A lot.
But is that just a depend on, hey, how you're feeling and how you feel going through your workouts? Everybody's different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, you know, some women, I usually say to them, and especially if they're coming in when they're pregnant, I usually say to them, listen, you might feel like you can go to 40 weeks. That's great. You can totally do that. But you might feel at 36 weeks that you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't really feel like I want to be in the gym anymore. That's fine too. You just give us the word and we'll pause your account indefinitely. Whenever you want to come back, you can come back. So that was like, for me, I know I slowed down around 37 weeks. I was like, yeah, this feels like an effort to like walk around now. Yeah. I have like really big babies, so it feels like I'm doing enough carrying around these giant children.
Yeah, that's. So. I had a client when I was in New York City, and I trained with her, and we worked together on like forming the plan and everything like that. Did a ton of research so that way I knew what the hell I was doing a little bit. And then we got probably around like that 36, 35 week period. And she was like, I think I'm just going to like, I'm like, perfectly fine. That like, we'll get back to it. That COVID hit and all that kind of stuff. So then we didn't end up getting back, 'cause I moved back up here and she was in the city, but
Yeah.
I connected her with somebody and she's been doing great. And
Yeah.
she actually moved up to Saugerty, so she trains, I think, at like
Oh, that's funny.
I think it's like a women's gym
Oh, cool.
in like Saugerty or something like
That's
that.
really
So,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in that the last part of the last trimester, you want to like, it's almost like a deload
Mm-hmm.
before you like go into your like marathon of labor, and then the recovery. I think it's very normal to feel like you want to slow things down. And I think it's beneficial again because most women's pelvic floors are super tight and overloaded. And when they go into labor, they don't want to have them be super tight. They want to be able to relax. And so I think a lot of that instinct is like, it's, I think it's meant to be like that.
What are your priorities post somebody has a C-section? They just went through that, things that you got to consider. Because you have, what's it called? The rectus diastasis, when you could have that separation?
Yeah,
Is
so
that a
those
common
are
thing?
those are sort of two different things. So like with diastasis, with abdominal separation, like it tends to be just a weakening of the midline
Right.
tissue. There was a lot of like fear-based rhetoric around this, maybe even like when I started like 10 or so years ago, working with pre-postnatal. And so it was like, oh my God.
That could be post-vaginal birth or C-section.
Yep. So anyone can have that. A lot of times it really is a matter of loading the tissue postpartum to repair that separation. So for me, I know like I had diastasis with all my kids because I have a short torso. I have large children. They take up a lot of space. I look freakish when I'm pregnant. Huge. Everyone always asks me if I'm having twins. I'm never having twins. Here we are. But so like I can tell you that like my abdominal muscles still sit kind of separated from each other. But because the tissue in between is so healthy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't like change any sort of function. So like a lot of times like those changes can be permanent. But it's like when it becomes problematic and like when it's like a functional issue. But like I can tell you like 9 times out of 10, loading the tissue to help it rebuild is the best thing that you can do. And like a lot of times women end up like thinking like, well, I can't go back to working out. I can't go back to lifting until my abs are back together. And that's like a very like misguided assumption. And a lot of times they're fed that assumption by PTs. And it's like not good because it's old information. And it really like, what are you going to do with like laying on your back and doing like 5 ab exercises for an an undisclosed amount of time until you're like, well, my abs are still separated.
Yeah, right. At some point, maybe early on, that's enough load to give you some adaptation. But
Yeah.
at some point,
You gotta load it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're never gonna adapt. It makes total sense to me. Like I came to that understanding probably after I had my third and I was like, wait a minute, this is not right. I'm like, this can't be it. And, I was like, I'm just going to load because I was told by my PT not to load. And I was like, I'm loading. So this is like 12 weeks postpartum. I started lifting again. My abs went back together. And I was like, oh, yep, I was right. So that's important. And then I think with C-section, so actually my third was a C-section. And I think when we're talking about recovering from C-sections, a lot of it is like taking care of the incision and like understanding that the fascia attached to that incision is not just that area. It's not just your abs. So a lot of times women will like lose feeling because their nerves are like severed or they're like slightly apart. And we know that nerves grow back very, very slowly. So what can be beneficial is incision massage. So you can see either like a massage therapist that specializes in scar massage, or you can see like a pelvic floor PT and they'll be able to show you how to massage the scar. So obviously after the initial healing period happens, then you start massaging it. And then like that way you can bring circulation to that area to encourage the healing. But a lot of times, there's like areas of the scar that can either form adhesions or can be more like uncomfortable on one side. Usually it's like the side that they tie you up on. I remember for me, I saw my pelvic floor PT, I don't know, I must have been like maybe 8 weeks postpartum after my third, my C-section. And she was like feeling the scar and she was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. And she was like feeling a little bit more. She's like, yeah, that's actually like, those are dissolvable stitches that have not dissolved. And I'm like, oh, that's great. So she really had to like work on that area. And I had to like wait a little bit longer until like literally putting my arm over my head was comfortable. Because a lot of times I would put my arm over my head and I was like, why does that hurt my incision? Like, well, because it's all connected with the fascia. So it's a matter of just like being patient with yourself and not rushing that, because like that can really affect movement and it can really hinder. It can cause like, shoulder impingement and all kinds of like the inability to like connect with your core. So it is really important to kind of take your time post C-section for sure.
Yeah, that's good. How much 'cause I've had women and even high school girls asking here, like how their menstrual cycle affects their training and should they do certain things at certain times? And I go, of course it does, and of course you should. But I don't know enough to give you a good answer. Is that stuff that you consider and talk about? And
it's kind of like the $1 million question in like the female industry right now. It's very interesting because there is no research that supports changing your training during any sort of part of your your cycle. I will say also that there have been many women that have been in the Olympics that have been on their first or second day of their period, and then they perform better than they ever performed before. So it doesn't weaken us necessarily, right? And it also doesn't mean we're going to be smashing PRs during ovulation.
Right.
It very much depends. I know that some women definitely have more difficulty with like PMS symptoms. I am not one of those people. I think a lot of times it's like a sign that there's other health issues going on that need to be addressed if you have like severe PMS. And obviously there's women who have PCOS and all these other things that can happen.
PCOS is a tough one, right?
It is. And unfortunately, it's not even a matter of like a blood test necessarily. It's like all these symptoms, you have PCOS. So it's
Which
like
is
polycystic ovarian syndrome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a tough one that can be linked back to lifestyle.
Because we're dealing with, explain to me a little bit if you can. We're dealing with higher cortisol levels. Is that true or no?
Yeah, so that can be so like it's not necessarily higher. It's like they're not in the right they're not at the right levels at the right time. So your cortisol should be high in the morning and it should be low at night. So when you get up in the morning, you should feel like ready to go. So that's when you should get like high cortisol, but not super high, just high enough to like wake you up without caffeine. And then at night, your cortisol shall be coming back down so that you can relax and, go to bed. But a lot of times what can happen is like cortisol gets low in the morning and then it's high at night and then you're all out of whack because you're not sleeping. And it kind of the issues compound themselves. But yeah, PCOS is like there's like a lot of different symptoms that can happen. You don't even necessarily have to have like actual like cysts on your ovaries in order to be diagnosed with PCOS. But again, it's one of those things where I've worked with many clients that have been diagnosed with PCOS and they get rid of those symptoms through lifestyle changes. But everyone is different. And obviously like working with an integrative physician is like the best thing that you can do because they're going to look at you as like a whole person rather than just like reproductive organs.
Yeah, that's where our healthcare system is just everything, which is like, listen, if I want to have a surgery, I want the best surgeon. I'm going to be okay. Sometimes medicine is needed.
Yep.
But yeah, explain what an integrative person can do for you.
Yeah, so like integrative medicine is just the idea that they're looking at the person as a whole and looking at all different symptoms or all the different systems together as opposed to like just in silos. So like obviously you got your GI doctor who's going to look at your digestion and all that kind of stuff.
And
then you got your
cardiologist.
Yeah. They're all going to look at different things. And unfortunately, because that's how our healthcare system is modeled, it's really hard to get like any sort of meaningful answers and then get any sort of help. So like if you can name it, that doesn't always necessarily mean that you can treat it. So like with PCOS, it's like a hard thing, but it's like, again, connecting with like PMS symptoms, a lot of reproductive issues can be addressed by someone who's going to look at the whole picture. Like, okay, what endocrine disrupting chemicals are you being exposed to? What is your diet like? What is your rest like? What is your what is your activity like on a daily basis? How are your stress levels? That's what an integrative physician is going to look at. As opposed to someone who's literally just going to look at like one thing and go, okay, your hormone levels are this, and then they need to be this. So here's some estrogen or here's some progesterone or, so it's a whole thing. So I've had many clients who have gone through a lot of, working with different practitioners, and the ones that see the integrative ones tend to have more success long term. So, but yeah, I think to answer the original question about, if your training should change during your cycle, I would say really for most women, no, that they should just keep going. But you may feel like luteal phase, like right before you get your period, like that is a time when it's very common to feel like very like low. And so I would say continue to be active exercise. Go for a walk if you don't feel like going to the gym. But I would say like push through as much as you can. Again, maybe not the time to PR, but it's definitely a time to stay active because that movement will be beneficial anyway in any stage.
If you're somebody who's struggling with like cortisol regulation, is that a good way to put it or not? Like it's just spiking when it shouldn't.
Yeah.
And is doing like a boot camp style high intensity class that's probably going to drive up cortisol a bad thing?
Uh-oh.
Go, let it rip.
You asked the question.
We'll rip it out, maybe.
Yeah, so I think that any sort of dysregulation of hormones it's not advisable to do HIIT 6-7 days a week. I think that HIIT has been demonized a little bit, but I also think that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. I think sprint training is great, but you going into a gym and every movement that you do is super heavy, super hard, super intense, and you want to die when you leave, that's probably not a sustainable way to work out long term. And unfortunately, we're taught like unless you want to pass out when you leave, you didn't get a good workout in. And it's like,
yeah, it's hard. That's
nope.
why we don't. I mean, that's the 20 to 30-year-old market. They just shift to that. They want to kill themselves, right? It's like we don't really fuck around with that market because the price point's lower.
Oh yeah,
and
because they can shove 40 people into a class,
right? And because it's that style of training we don't do. It's that clientele retention rate must be low.
Yeah,
it's at some point. Yeah, you're just like, dude, I can't live my life and train like this.
And I think for some people, not all people. I think probably not the majority of them, but a lot of like 20 to 30-year-olds, it's like that competitive outlet that they don't have anymore.
Sure.
And it gives them that team feeling,
Sure.
like all of that. Because I mean, you did CrossFit, I did CrossFit, and the CrossFit gym I went to was very good. Like they're a reason why I wanted to open my own gym and like things like that. And the programming was good, but I've seen obviously CrossFit gyms that are not great. Yeah. And just the likelihood of injury and everything like that. And
well, I think you have to think about it too, right? I'm always thinking biomechanics and injury. I'm doing heavy weight, under fatigue, my movement patterns break down. Better, higher chance I get hurt, but also hormonally. Yeah. Not great for you.
Yeah, for sure.
The funny thing is when I was doing CrossFit and then I would do like traditional weight training and whatnot with it to complement. I never once got hurt at CrossFit, and I hurt myself more on my own than I ever did with CrossFit. And it's so funny because people were like, "Oh, don't you get hurt?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I had good coaching and people there to make sure I wasn't going to get hurt." Right. So, no, I never got hurt doing CrossFit. I got hurt doing shit on my own.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think everyone needs a coach, right? Yeah. Everyone needs guidance. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of hype around doing high intensity training, and you can definitely get quote unquote results from training like that. And I think this is like therein lies the sort of problem for those of us who are trying to do things quote the right way.
Well, that's like if you restrict your calories and do some crazy diet, you'll get some results, but like not a sustainable thing. And at some point you're going to feel like shit.
Well, right. And at some point, like what's going to happen? So it was like the female athlete triad where like, you end up in a position where you're losing bone because you're
Dude,
doing.
That's a hard one because we have cross country girls in here and it's just like a cultural thing. You have one girl on the team who has great times, but she has an eating disorder. Yep. And
she hasn't hit real puberty yet.
Right. And then other girls think, oh my God, she's doing this and this is
this is what I had to do. This was the same thing when I was in high school. That's exactly what it was like. At that point when I was at Holy Names, the Saratoga runners were all like, they all looked exactly the same and they were like unstoppable. I mean, these girls went to nationals. They were crazy good, but you knew that their coaches were crazy.
Did they just get in trouble for stuff like that? Maybe not.
Recently,
Can we talk
I don't know.
about it? I don't know. Yeah,
I'm like out of that realm right now,
stay out of it.
but yeah, they were for a while. The coaches were like well known for being like crazy militant with their coaching, and they would like advise them on nutrition. And so these girls were like stick thin but rapid. They were so fast. But then like what would happen is they were notorious for going to college and then burning out because there was like, oh, okay, you're now in like on your own. You're not being shown, every single day, like you got to do this and that. And they were undernourishing, and you get like stress fracture after stress fracture. And it's like, okay, what are we learning from this? Like that. And it's the same thing for women who are adult women. Like if you lose your cycle, there's a problem. There's something wrong. You cannot survive on 1,000 calories a day and doing high intensity training. Cause like just at like your basal metabolic rate is like what, 1,800-ish calories. Add in high intensity exercise. and then undereat, what's going to happen? Like there's the other shoe is going to drop at some point. Maybe it won't drop for 6 months. Maybe it won't drop for 6 years. I don't know. But like you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I trained that way and I ended up getting a back injury or I had to get shoulder surgery. And we know what that looks like. That sucks. It's really hard to come back from that. You only have one body. So why not train it in a way that is sustainable and like you still can hit all your goals, but you're doing it in a way that makes sense for you long term, not like just like, oh, I'm sweating for the wedding in 6 months.
Right. It's just the quick fix stuff. It's like, if you viewed your workouts like instead of this week I'm going to work out 4 times like crazy. If you go, in the next 3 years I want to work out X amount of times, like great, you're thinking more long term. You're going to do things with less risk so you don't get hurt. 'Cause you get hurt, you're shutting down your workouts for you name it, however long you got to do to heal.
And then you're back to the start.
Yeah. Then you're back to the start.
What was the point
You're in
of
some
all
cycle.
of that? Yeah.
And you're probably going to look forward to working out a little bit more as opposed to like being like, oh shit, I got to go do another workout.
Exactly. People dread it.
Yeah. And to me also, like if somebody really wants that feeling of like dying, like you can mix that in some way. It doesn't have to be the whole workout though. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Give them the strength at the beginning and then throw in a Metcon at the end. And get them moving.
But also that's the knowledge of the coach. Like anybody that doesn't know shit from shit can just make somebody sweat and run around. Right? But burpees, fucking whatever.
Fucking worse than
but
exercise ever.
But understanding, good programming, but then understanding how to safely give variety, right? Because like I can get somebody better with probably just like split squats, TRX rows, push-up variations, like for indefinitely. But they'll get bored.
Right.
And not come back. So now like, okay, let me use my artistic brain.
That was me this morning.
To give some variety.
I was writing a program this morning. I'm like, what do I want to put in here? And give them a little bit of variety.
I could just do, squats, rows, this, and the person would be great, but they could be bored.
Yeah. So I was like, let me give them something else. And
at our gym at Her Strength, we do 4-week cycles.
Yeah. That's
so it changes at the beginning of the month. We teach a new program. It's a 3-day split. And then they'll learn at whatever level they're at. So we have like 4 different levels people can be at, and then they'll do that workout for 4 weeks, progressive overload, getting better. And then like we actually just started integrating PR week. So like every 4 to 6 months, we do a week in which you like can PR. So whatever lifts you want to PR in or whatever skills you want to practice, like this is your week to do it. And then we're going to kind of deload on the other days. Yeah. And so that's been like, we did a PR week in the spring, and honest to God, it was like so awesome to see these women like killing all their lifts. They were like shocking themselves as like what they could do. But it just goes to show like if you stick with a program and you're doing it and you're really dedicating, your time to it, you're showing up, you're doing the work, even if you are bored on week 3, you're gonna end up making progress because you just are. It's just like how it works.
Shit, I get bored with workouts in them, but I still do them.
Yeah, so do I.
Except for deadlifting, I never get bored of that.
No, me either. That's a good point.
Yeah, everything else though, I'm like,
I don't want to do this,
but I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
You're back to lifting now, though.
Yeah, I am. I actually I felt really good and started doing something at like 3 weeks postpartum. And then I kind of like eased myself into it. And actually, so now I'm at like 12 weeks post and I feel great. And I feel like I'm like back to like a good baseline right now. So that's a really good feeling because I was like really struggling when I was pregnant to find any sort of energy to train. But now, I'm actually following a PT, her program. And I really love it. So I'm doing that for now, and we'll see, where it goes. I'll get back to my kettlebells and stuff, but I needed like a good baseline full body program where I was going to be following something, but like actually had some accountability and wasn't going to just be like going in the gym like, what do I want to do today? And then hurt myself.
Yeah.
Which is what I would do.
I mean, I feel like just a lot of what I've retained from what you're saying is a lot of it has to do with like, how does that person feel in each individual? And like, obviously you have to take the biology into it and everything too, but
for sure,
a lot of it's just based off of feel and like, making sure mentally that they're good and like especially that first trimester and like working on that and like that. I think that's a big thing, one in general with anybody.
Yeah, for sure.
But like especially if you're dealing with like that population is like just listen to how they feel.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Exactly.
Be empathetic. Like understand.
I think the problem is that a lot of people have been told to not listen to their bodies and to like push through the pain. Like no pain, no gain.
That's the boot camp style, calorie restricting.
And that's why like again, I think there's plenty of women who do boot camp style training when they're pregnant, and there are plenty of women who are able to do that and able to continue that and have success with that. However, I think that the mentality for most women at some point is going to be really dysfunctional because they're like, I should like push through. And it's like, well, actually, like, wait a minute. Can you just back it up? Why is it that you're feeling this way? And it's almost like it's that encouragement to drown out whatever you're feeling because the music is loud, the coaches are screaming in your face, everyone else is doing
Imagine
heavy
doing
lifts.
that. I could not
I
all
could not
day.
do it.
Just be like a
Couldn't.
streaming, or they put.
Well, they all lose their voices, so.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't know any, but sure. Yeah, I'm sure they do. Or you put a fucking microphone on me. Like no way
I mean,
during
you-
the day.
you could-
Britney Spears style?
You can.
That's what they wear, right?
Yeah, they do.
People some,
They
yeah.
You
do.
can
I
give me a
think that they
mic'd
do.
up. I'll do a mic'd up day, but I'm not screaming. Like, just put the mic on me and just take whatever from it and put it on.
You'll just whisper in
Yeah.
people's
I
ears
guess-
like, God, it's you.
Whisper sweet nothings.
Just ASMR
10
people all day.
pounds more on that back squat.
You can do 5 pounds more.
I believe in you. Just really quiet motivation in the
ASMR
back.
gym content, Paul. Make a note.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
like
it's
it.
called, right?
Yeah.
ASMR.
Something like
give
that.
everyone like headphones when they come in, just like this, and then you can just whisper things to them through a
I
microphone.
just can do like this with the can. Just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we're gonna.
I can see you. That looks too easy.
Oh, that'd be so much easier than me having to yell across the gym, and be like, "Hey, switch your foot."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, half kneeling, pale off your chops. Switch your feet. Switch
yeah.
your feet.
It's not that one. It's the other one.
Is that a thing that
No,
you
the
got
other
with you
one.
guys too?
Yeah, yeah.
Always.
Of course.
Always.
Of course it is. And you can tell someone 100 times and they're still doing it wrong.
Other knee.
And I tell myself, I'm like, "How do I remember this?" I'm like, "Well, I do it all the time, so I guess that's why I remember it." And it's also just like anatomically makes sense.
Yeah, right. But, anatomically with a client, they don't care.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
want you to tell them what to do.
Yeah, of
So.
course. You said before like endocrine disruptors.
Yeah.
Explain that because you were at our house. We're like that too.
Yeah, so endocrine disruption is essentially like something that will basically it sends your body a signal, essentially it's like a scent or a chemical.
We're talking environmental things right now.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like it could literally be like a scented candle, like a Yankee candle. It could be a scented lotion like Bath and Body Works.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, it could be like additives in foods, but essentially like your body sees those chemicals as messengers, and it's essentially like messing up your actual hormones. So like the messaging system gets like upregulated. It's just doing too much, and so a lot of times like long-term use of those chemicals, exposure to those chemicals, it can really mess with like your hormone baselines. And so, and then for women, you can end up with like all kinds of like hormone issues, including reproductive issues.
Yeah, I'm sure males as well, right? You have like the glyphosates in food.
Yeah, right. Oh, and laundry detergent.
That.
Stop
yeah.
using Downy.
Yeah,
Stop that.
Yeah, we're Sam. Yeah, Sam's always
I
been.
use the laundry sheet things.
I
Are
don't
they
know if that's
scented?
good or not.
I don't think so.
They better not
Gotta
be.
make sure.
I don't think
Make
so.
sure they're not scented.
Yeah, okay, but like, yeah, probably beauty products.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's thankfully there's like more options now.
What should people be looking for to be like, I don't want this in my product?
Any sort of like scents are typically like that are not from essential oils are no good. Like any deodorants, aerosols are really bad too. So like any aerosol deodorant or hairspray, a lot of like hair products will have all kinds of like crap added to them. And the thing is like it's not necessarily one thing. It's all of the things combined that are like messing up our systems. And essentially they're causing like us like distress at a cellular level.
Yeah, like Paul, look up foods in the U.S. with the highest glyphosate content. It's like people eat these every day, which is like what they're spraying in the fields.
Yeah, bread, anything like fortified
Cereals,
too.
yeah.
And there's like all kinds of stuff added to our like.
I mean, Jay, that's how
what
our
is it called?
grandfather
What is it?
died of cancer was glyphosate exposure. Roundup. It's the common ingredient in Roundup.
is that
It's
right?
exposure to that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
it's
that.
yeah. These back in the day, they didn't know. You're not wearing a mask. You're taking that stuff in every day.
Yep. Yeah. Well, they were spraying kids with DEET back in the day.
Yeah.
Cereals,
Yeah. Give like
granola bars, whole wheat breads, chickpeas, Quaker Oats.
yeah. right-
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's like there are brands that probably
Those
don't
were like
have
the
that.
first things that popped up on Google.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, so we're gluten free in my house, and actually, I saw like a post the other day that was like Bob's Red Mill gluten free flour like tested like very high for glyphosate, and I was like, oh shit, we use that. So like if we need to like make something, like I tend to eat more carnivore.
But
And
you feel better
so-
that way.
Oh yeah, like hugely. And I was vegan for 2.5 years.
What about, will you do fruit or are you no fruit?
Yeah, I'll eat fruit.
Okay.
Yep. But I'm aware that like there's a time and a place for fruit. Like I don't eat it like all day every day. I'm not like snacking all day. I don't tend to eat bananas. I don't know why. They just don't make me feel very good.
I get bloated with bananas.
Yeah, they don't make me feel good, which is a shame because they're easy. But
I love bananas. Had one today.
Well, got
Like
your
Paul, if I
potassium
eat a
in.
banana here, I go, who's in? Like I may have to fart kind of soon.
Oh no, that's not in this space too. You gotta like go outside.
Jay, no bananas.
You
Step
gotta
outside, get some
open
air
the
for a
garage
minute.
doors. So when I see Mike just standing outside randomly,
That's when
I know
he had a
why.
banana.
Yeah.
Banana skin is like sitting over there. Yeah, I think like I tend to feel really good with high protein. So I just eat meat a lot. So it's like it's the easiest way, especially if it's like local grass-fed beef. So like my dad will buy like half a cow and then he just like puts it in their chest freezer and they give us half and we have, the other. And so then we just work our way through that. And then you know what you're putting into your body.
Yeah.
So like anything that's like processed with a label on it, like I've been we're pretty militant with our kids. Like we don't really let them have any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's
There's
tough.
some, like, what about like microplastics? Are you?
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's
God.
tough too. It's like
I
fucking
know.
scary when you think about it. You're like, oh my God,
is.
everything I do
I
every
know,
day.
in my Lululemon leggings that they're talking about, like they all have microplastics. I'm like, no, they don't. Shh, they don't. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think you have to kind of like
you can't be
pick and
perfect,
choose.
right?
Right.
You have to tell
And
yourself
again,
that.
like we said, like it's all these things added up together that sort of like cause things to spill over and become problematic long term. So, you should be mindful and aware of what's going on, but like don't make yourself crazy.
Yeah, don't be overwhelmed because it's like, okay, am I getting good sleep? Am I eating halfway decent? Am I
Right.
exercising? Like those are the big rocks.
Yeah.
And it's like then
And
yes.
like, do I feel good?
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel good, yeah, maybe you need to like take a little inventory of like your lifestyle, what's going on, what do you have in your house, what are you putting in your body, what are you exposing yourself to. But generally speaking, if you feel good, you're probably doing something right. So that's positive. But like it was always like when I had like gut issues, I'm like, there's something wrong. Like I got to figure this out. So, but we live near like a 5G tower. So that's another rabbit hole I've been going down.
People, that's a conspiracy thing, right? Like, is 5G bad or not?
When has a conspiracy ever ended up being false in the last like 4 years?
I mean,
That's a good call. For the last 4 years, I was like, there's definitely conspiracies that have been false.
there's one.
But-
I'm so
Like what?
Not in the last 4 years.
What do you think's false?
I was never like I never really paid attention to anything until COVID, and you just went through stuff in New York, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
God, like
Well, everyone got
thi-
red pilled.
things are right, but
Yeah.
like, just nobody knew what was going on,
Yeah.
and you couldn't see. Yeah, I don't know. We have in 2 weeks we have a woman on she's a PhD in cognitive psych, but
cool.
her area of expertise is conspiracy theory and extremism.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm kind of stoked just to learn like the psychology and just kind of see where she's at,
Interesting.
and yeah, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I mean, I think EMF exposure is not a conspiracy. I think that EMF exposure is problematic. I think everyone knows that. It's
Just
really
about
not.
electromagnetic field.
Yeah. So it's like essentially like when you're exposed to anything that has like radiation.
Right.
Yeah, definitely not
So-
good. Not a good thing.
No, it's not. So,
Yeah, of course. I mean-
again, so you can go through all kinds of rabbit holes where you're like, well, my health is being affected by this and this and this and
It's
this
easy
and this.
to, right? Or even people psychologically, yeah, I'm affected by this and this and that. And it's like, okay, take a breath. You're right.
Right.
Big rocks. What are the big rocks here for you to be happy and
That's
to
a good way
feel
put it.
good?
We have clients that come in and they're very overwhelmed by all the things that they think that they need to change in their life. And then it's like, okay, well, let's address the things that you can control now. And then we'll go from there, right? Like, so rather than giving someone a macro plan when they walk through the door, I'm like, all right, I want you to focus on getting like 20 to 30 grams of protein in every meal that you eat.
Right.
Because a lot of times women are getting like a fraction of that. And then they're like, I don't know why I'm so exhausted and why I feel terrible and why my body composition won't change. And it's like, okay, well, you need the right things. So like rather than like splitting hairs and saying like stop drinking your Diet Pepsi, like let's like focus on protein. And then, we'll figure out what else you need to get throughout the day. And like we can make small changes as you go. And we work with a nutrition company that does like those like kind of small changes and makes it more manageable for people and they're education based. So it's not so overwhelming. But yeah, it's like, being active and physically coming into the gym, someone walking through our doors, that's like the first battle, right? So if someone walks through our doors and they're ready and they're like, I want to do this, we're like, okay, let's start at the beginning with you, and then we can just slowly kind of adjust things as we go through to improve your health.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, listen, we're in the field of psychology as much as anybody. People we're seeing all day and behavior change.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, it's an important thing to understand.
Slow and sure.
Fuck, this time went fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
dude.
just realized that.
Shoot, it flew. Yeah, dude, I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, this is a blast. Yeah, Yeah, Nora, anything you want to plug before we jump off?
Plug away. Shameless plugs.
Plug
Do it.
away.
Shameless plugs.
Yeah, okay. So if you want to follow me, my Instagram page is coach_Nora_Matthew. And then my gym is Her Strength Studio. And we are in Latham, and we're always accepting new members. So, check us out.
Cool.
Awesome.
This is great, man. You're the best. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll
Appreciate it
catch
having me.
everybody next time. Thank you.